Welcome back to the SA Sports Show. I'm James Rogers from Squash SA. We're back down here at the 24/7 squash court at Tonsley Park. Today we've got a very special guest. We have Lyndon Huff, the CEO of ProHab. Lyndon's been a physiotherapist, strength and conditioning coach, sports administrator at the highest level, and I think now we can add entrepreneur to the list. Welcome, Lyndon. Thanks for coming in today.
Much appreciated, James.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about when to be coming back from injury and what people can do to assist that process. So I know every injury is going to be different, but as a general guide to people who are trying to play sports out there in the weekend who aren't professional athletes, when should they try and come back to sport after an injury?
Yeah. I think there's a whole lot in that, but really simply is there's, I guess, some particular benchmarks we really need to go after, and from our point of view, it's really looking at some basic kind of levels of data. If you want to get out there and you've been previously injured, you need to take yourself up to a certain level. And I think one of the things that we've seen is there's been a lack of data and kind of lack of information. When can you actually go? So from our side, it's pretty much around looking at the data.
Yeah. So we talk a little bit about rehab, but I've recently heard the word prehab been thrown around a bit. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah. So some of these terms are kind of, I guess, medical terms, but rehab is essentially recovering from injury, so taking you back to a level where you can play, whether it be sport or whatever you do on a daily basis, whereas really the prehab is trying to put a protection in there so you actually don't get injured. So we're looking at things more like kind of overuse injuries, so we're making sure that your body doesn't break down so it can keep on going. So that probably explains it.
Now, your team here at the New Venture Institute, where you work in your workspace, the ProHab company that you've started, has come up with something that's probably going to revolutionise coming back from injury and also the way we recover from surgeries through the medical industry. Do you want to just quickly give us an idea of what you've been working on so people can be ready for it when it comes out?
Sure. We've built a device which is a titanium sensor, so we can really assess what's going on in rehab. So when you pull on a band, we don't know normally what's happening when you're given one of these from a physio.
Yeah, I've used TheraBands myself, but what's it mean? Don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see how hard you're actually pulling and how much you're doing. So over time, we can gradually step you up and progress you back towards sport, and then you know you're ready to go. And that's what it's really been about. And
I've seen this device in its early stages working. It gives you real-time info on your phone that directs you how hard and what kind of exercises to do so you don't overdo it and make the thing worse. That's right?
Exactly. So it's pretty much all around trying to know what you're actually doing and how much you actually can progress with. We've put some safety measures in there so you actually make sure you don't do too much and overload too quickly, or if you're actually stagnating and you don't know whether you're actually getting better.
Okay. Are there any common misconceptions around injuries and when to come back, and even I've done this or that, but you see people, they're not trained in this industry, they really don't know what to do. So anything out that you think that you've seen over the years is just a common misconception, really? Yeah,
I think a really good example is recently being up at the Com Games that we were talking to one of the AFL clubs up there, and one of the things that they really spoke around is how things have really moved on and changed. People feel that now once you're actually injured, put you on ice, protect you, don't kind of go out there and do too much. But in actual fact, a good example is one of the AFL teams, they had a player who'd torn his hamstring, a minor tear, but he was running 2 days later. And that's pretty revolutionary, and the way the model's been looking. So those misconceptions is don't do too much, really protecting you. We actually need to do a little bit more.
Active recovery?
Active recovery, but be safe about it. Don't kind of step them up in too quickly.
Yep.
And listen to bodies.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's some great advice, and really looking forward to see how this thing changes things. So thanks for coming on today. Back to you guys in the studio.
Yes, thanks for staying with us on the Sports Show. Netball, of course, is one of the big games here in South Australia and around Australia, and we've been very fortunate, Maise, to get someone that is going to be, don't put too much pressure on Maise straight up,
Put a
superstar. She's going to be a superstar eventually. Maise Nankerville's been good enough to come in and say good day. Maise, how are you?
Good, very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming in. Let's start with the captain of the state team. Last month, of course, we had the Nationals here, and you played exceptionally well because you went on to make the national squad. But South Australia, second to Victoria. Did you think we were a chance? Were we a chance to beat them?
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of success in the past, especially within the under-17s and the under-19s age groups. So I definitely knew we were up there. A lot of the girls that I've played with, I've gone through most state teams with them. So not only are they your teammates, but they're actually your best friends on court. So yeah, I was backing everyone in that team. Look, the starting 7 was very strong, but even our bench players, if they were to come on in the grand final, you know, they would sort of get the job done. So I had every faith in our team, and to get the silver, extremely happy to captain that. So
what was it close?
Yeah, it was very close. So started off the game a bit. Victoria had the lead for a while, and they led most of the game. But then we were able to actually draw it back within the last quarter to about 3, and then ended up losing by 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it was close. Yeah.
Yeah. And pretty evenly matched as well. A lot of.
Where was that played?
That was in Adelaide here, so just at Netball SA there.
Lost at home.
Lost at home?
Yeah.
It happens?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll have a look at the captain.
Hey, what? No, mate, don't look at the captain, mate. No. Well, she played well. She did her bit, mate. She
mate,
went
cool.
on for the Australian team, mate.
That's
no,
right.
you're brutal, mate. You're just, if you were on his squad, straight gone, mate. See, that's it. Losing, you're done. That's the kind of bloke he is. Hey, you don't have much time to breathe, though, and get a recovery, because then you're with the Southern Force playing in that league.
Yeah.
And then you'll bounce off that into Matrix, and then, so it's a pretty full-on year for you.
Yeah, it is. I suppose all that exposure is good in a sense, and you're sort of jumping from one team to another. So it is quite tough, and especially managing all the training with that. Some teams take priority, and then so at the moment the ANL's priority, as well as SASS training, so South Australian Sports Institute. But then once all that's done, I'll be able to get released to club, which will be really exciting, just to get back into the Matrix Premier League there and back with all the girls. I've gone out to a couple of trainings just to see how it goes. And yeah, can't wait to get back into that as well.
What did you think about training with the Thunderbirds? How big a step is it? How big a step is it from what you're playing now to the Thunderbirds?
I suppose being very young, being able to get that development and being able to surround myself with like highly regarded players on a constant basis is really good for my development, and it is definitely another step up. Just the work rate and intensity that they want to bring to each and every training, just so come game day they do have that intensity to run out a full game. It is definitely the next step, and I'm on that pathway, but probably not quite there at the moment. Hoping within the next couple of years to even be named as a training partner for an SSN team. That's probably my next step, and sort of break through from there. Yeah.
Maise, I noticed from the Olympics to back to playing NBL to playing, the speed of the game was the thing I noticed the most, and you touched on the intensity. So coming back from a Thunderbirds training, say, to Matrix or the Force, does it feel like the game's a little bit in slow motion?
I suppose as you sort of get like more elite, it is a lot quicker, the game. Even the physicality and the just brain smarts of the players you're coming up against is a bit more advanced. And then coming back to Matrix in the Premier League, being a younger player, and I suppose having that experience from playing in the ANL and then training alongside some T-Bird players just with match play, you do come back with a bit more experience, and I suppose your game smarts is a bit quicker, and you sort of have a bit more expectation on yourself to perform on a consistent basis. So and even with the changes to the rules in the game, it's just a lot of the officials are trying to make it a lot quicker game and more exciting and appealing to a crowd. So just with that, you do always have to be switched on and be proactive on the court. Yeah.
Do you take that intensity and the training methods from the Thunderbirds when you do visit there and back to Matrix? Do you have an input back there to say, hey, look, I don't think we're working hard enough here. We should be working a bit harder. Do you take that back and give an input there?
I think the Matrix Premier League, they like to still have that intensity there each and every training, and it is still quite a high level environment. So I know definitely throughout their pre-season they've been working harder than ever to make sure that we're staying on top and being the team to chase throughout the season. But yeah, I like to think I come back with a few tips and even just set plays that we can do that some of the teams haven't got, just so we are that one step above the rest. But the Matrix culture and their atmosphere and what they want to bring each and every game. It is really competitive, and we know that if we want to stay at the top, then we have to be willing to work harder.
If my memory serves me right, I reckon there was a pre-season tournament the first week of April. Now, I don't know whether that clashed with your state training or not, but I reckon the first game in that tournament was Matrix v Thunderbirds. Did you play in that?
Yeah, so I was actually, didn't get released to play with Matrix at all. I did actually, fortunately, get to watch that game. And I knew that playing up against the Thunderbirds, like the Matrix girls, probably felt a bit out of their comfort zone, but they're up for any sort of challenge. And
how do you reckon they win?
They didn't go too bad. Obviously, T-Birds were probably the favourites.
Of course,
coming into that.
That.
You'd hope so anyway. But
exactly.
But I think we're just still working out a couple of the combinations at Matrix there. We've got a lot of depth within the club, a lot of young talent coming through. So just being able to get that exposure against the T-Birds, who are a lot more physical, girls who've played internationally as well, for England, even Australia. So even just to come up against that, you do learn things about your own game as well. So, but the ANL actually switched over with the Thunderbirds halfway through the competition there. So, fortunately didn't get to play alongside the Matrix girls. But yeah.
Is that all you do? Do you work?
I do have a job actually. I'm in a sports store, so.
Well, whereabouts are you?
Just at Harbour Town.
Okay.
Sports runouts and sports power
and they're
there.
pretty good with.
Yeah,
hey, I've got to duck off to training. I've got to go here.
They're pretty flexible with that sort of thing. My manager actually plays sport, so sometimes if I'm feeling a bit under the wear with training loads and that sort of thing, he's pretty understandable in saying just take the day off, come back tomorrow, like reset. So it is really good. Do you think?
You have to work, mate. You don't get every day off, mate.
Oh, right. Even if I'm feeling a little
it's like I've got them wrapped around my finger, but
sounds like
it. Hey, Maise, just quickly because we've got to wrap it up. Next game for the Force is this weekend.
Yes.
Up against?
So the New South Wales Waratahs in Sydney. So an away game.
Tough one.
So they haven't had a lot of wins either. So hoping it's pretty fairly contested in that, and hopefully we can get over the line.
Time to squeeze them in. Hey, Maise, I don't know how you fit us into your schedule by the sound of it. You're a pretty busy lady, so I really appreciate your time. Keep an eye. She's going to be a superstar. We'll see you with the Thunderbirds the next couple of years. Stay with us. Still plenty to come on the show.